they're applying their learning and getting to know people and helping people. And that's the other big thing is I always want something they do to feel like they saw it help somebody. I think the biggest reason that people don't help people is because they don't get to see the help. Once you see the need and you see how you're helping, man, it's powerful.
That was the voice of this week's guest, Alex Campbell. Alex has been a teacher for 24 years and is a multi-time Teacher of the Year recipient who lives with his wife and children in Northeast Tennessee. Pushing the boundaries of schooling, his ideas often make him an outcast in places like the principal's office or even the district superintendent's office. Known for his book, 10 Lessons That Will Get You Fired, and for literally solving serial killer cold cases with his high school class. Yes, you heard that right. High school students are solving serial killer cases. In this episode, we discuss 1, Alex's book, 10 Lessons That Will Get You Fired, but You Must Teach Immediately. 2, how Alex teaches project-based learning at the high school level. 3, why Alex doesn't give homework to his students. 4, how Alex's high school class literally caught a serial killer and got a woman out of prison who was serving a life sentence. 5, the differences Alex is noticing between girls and boys at his school. So I hope you're ready for today's episode. Take out your notes and let's start the show. As a male educator at your school site, it can get lonely. Only 23% of K-12 educators in America are male. And just think about what this gender gap means for your male students. They experience disproportionate levels of discipline. This is a show for male educators who want to feel more understood by their community and want to create emotionally safe classrooms and schools for the next generation of male students. Welcome to Unmasking with Male Educators. Alex Campbell, welcome to Unmasking with Male Educators. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Well, I'm so juiced. I think as we started learning before the show, I'm dated in terms of how much I know you're up to these days because I got to see you at the XQ conference in DC and at the Exchange, and it was what a powerful event that was. And I heard you speak there, and I got a copy of your book there. I got a book from a while back, so you got a new book that I'm looking forward to getting because your first book was amazing. First of all, I would like you to introduce yourself. I'm already just excited to be with you in this conversation. Will you let folks know what you want them to know about you, what's important to know of you as an educator in this conversation as you and I talk about our own masks as well?
Sure. So again, my name is Alex Campbell. I teach in a rural school here in East Tennessee up in the Appalachian Mountains. It's a beautiful place to live, but I've grown up here. I've taught here my whole life. I've been in a couple of different schools. Taught about 13 different subjects throughout the years, but currently I'm teaching social studies, world history, U.S. history, sociology, those type things. But let's say I've been at it almost 25 years, and I feel like I've learned and changed so much from where I started as a teacher. So I'm really excited to maybe talk about some of those things, and maybe some of that conversation can help others.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. When we started doing this mask movement, I was a teacher. Well, I was an educator. I was an administrator at the time, taught for 10 years, and then I was an administrator for 3. And then the opportunity to really start building this program from the outside. And I've been over the last, say, since 2016, trying to work on the outside coming into schools, which, is complex as well. But, education as a whole is complex. So you wouldn't be in education if you didn't like complex problems to solve, because I think you've already experienced more that it's more than just standing in front of a group of people and telling them stuff, not if you want real learning to happen. So thank you for being an educator that's done more than just stand in front and talk, bringing students along in the journey. It has been really beautiful. So how about we do this? Because I would love to, I know you from a story, but I want us to first, before we jump into all that, maybe you and I can do our masks. We'll talk about our masks first.
Sure.
So the front of the mask is and think about ourselves as educators, as teachers, what do we let the world see? And then the back are some things that you often don't usually. And it could be with your students, with your colleagues. So do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first? And we'll just do maybe 2 or 3 things from the front, the things that you let people see, and then maybe 2 or 3 things that you don't usually let people see. And any you want to say about those? So you can go first, or I can go first, whichever you
Tell
prefer.
you what, in honor of just having a great exemplar, I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll follow up.
Okay. All right. Well, today's mass, the mass that I review today, and as an educator, still, I'm not in the classroom explicitly, like, but I do a lot of workshops in schools. So the mass that I show on the front is like I show serious. I wrote, this is what I drew, but this is serious, passionate, and direct. Um, and I'm serious about the work. I'm passionate about education. Direct is one that I think often gets me in trouble. Uh, Even though I'm trying to be kind, but I'm pretty clear. Like I'm clear what my purpose is. I'm clear about my thoughts. Oftentimes, and sometimes when you're clear and direct, they take it as being aggressive and mean. And I'm like, I'm not really saying anything mean right now. I'm actually just telling you kind of my position, and I'm telling you in a way that I'm not dabbling with my words. That I know what I'm trying to say, right? And so something I found. I mean, it happened this past week with a group of PTO, a group of PTA organization who was in negotiation mode with us, and they didn't want me to be direct. They wanted me to like be over here. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you wanted me to say. You asked me a question. I gave you the answer. And so that sometimes, and I've learned that earlier in my life, I was not direct. I was like, trying to like always keep people happy because that's what I was taught growing up. Was like, don't make people mad. Don't be mean. Like always trying to like, and oftentimes you don't end up not being your full self. And so the back of the mask, things I don't talk about as much, but also sometimes it maybe sometimes harder to talk about. I wrote 3 words. I wrote worry, tired, and then what's next. And I'll focus on what's next one right now. Well, tired is one that I'm on this detox. I'm in today's day 25. So I've been plant-based for 25 days, which is a whole different world. I really want to eat some meat right now. But anyway, nonetheless, I've been keeping good. I've been following the plan, but it's been I feel good, but my energy level is off because my body's trying to get acclimated to like I'm getting only energy from plants and fruits, right? So it's a new type. It's a different kind of tired, but it's like I do feel some energy on one side, and I also feel some like maybe it's like I'm in my mind. I'm telling myself I think I'm tired, right? But energetically, I only had coffee twice in this 25 days, which is not like me. I usually have 4 shots every morning, right? So that's a new one. And then what's next? You know, I think when you're doing a job, you should be focused on that job, and you shouldn't focus on other stuff. I think the way that kind of typical work happens. Like especially when I was a teacher, right? You wouldn't be talking about I'm looking for my next opportunity. You just stay focused on the thing, right? And because sometimes it makes other people nervous around you. And I think I find sometimes I'm wondering like, what's next? What am I supposed to be doing? What's calling my energy to be doing in this next season? For my own self, like for Ashanti, I'm committed to the work, but then what am I? Am I even giving myself any attention or thoughts about what's next? So those are things that I don't talk about as much, but that's the mask for today.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say my outside is successful, confident, and knowledgeable. And I live in a place where sometimes if you just have your shirt tail tucked in and a button up shirt on or some dress pants, like kids look at you like, man, he must be very successful. Really, we have a lot of endemic poverty and things like that. And I think they see people that might have, gone to college, graduated, they're paying their bills. They've got some dress clothes on. And I think really a lot of kids think, man, there is a super successful person. Can I go back and forth on my mask or do I have to do all
Absolutely.
three and
Yeah.
all three? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but I think maybe what students many times don't see is that I still worry about things. I still worry about things all the time. So you think, oh, I've been a success, but really I wonder how my kids are going to do, you know, on their state test, in life, as parents, as members of our society. Am I keeping up with things I need to keep up with so I can be a good teacher? I don't know much about AI. Like in 50 years, will people have to know about AI to get a job? I mean, am I really preparing them for the future? So that's kind of the way I think. If we go back to the outside, I
Mhm.
think a lot of students And a lot of people sometimes see me as really confident. I had a fellow teacher one time said I was intimidating. And I
Mm.
said, I'm sorry you feel that way. I said, what have I done to make you feel that way? And she said, well, nothing. And I said, well, did I say something? And she said, well, no. And I said, then what is it? And she said, well, it's just the way you walk. So I don't know. I think it's just, I kind of waddle, to be honest. I'm kind of a big guy. So I don't know. But I guess, I mean, I throw that off to people. And I had a principal one time tell me, he said, he was new and he said, I don't know much about you, but he said, I know one thing about you already. And I said, what's that? And he said, you intimidate people. And I said, why is that? And he said, it's not what you say, it's not what you do. He said, you just got a thing where like you just appear so confident and it makes people question like, ooh, am I really as confident? Do I really know what I'm thinking or saying or want to do? And I don't know why I come off that way because if you look at the back of my mask, many times I'm really unsure. I'm
Mm.
unsure about what I'll be doing in 5 years or 10 years, or I'm unsure if what I'm trying to do right now is the right thing. You try to make a decision and sometimes you don't know if it's the right thing to do. You only know years later. So,
Mm.
that's what's on my inside. On my last one, um, I'm gonna say I project being knowledgeable. I think a lot of people say, Mr. Campbell really knows way too much useless stuff about history. And I do, I do love history. I'm a voracious reader of news and world events. I just like to stay up on things. And I feel like I'm learning something every day. And I'm like, how did I not know that? And I have a good friend, he teaches math. And I said, are you ever teaching math and you think, I didn't know that that number existed, or I didn't know that 2 plus 2 equaled 4. And he said, no, that never happens. I pretty much know everything about math. And I said, I'll be teaching something and I'll say, well, I didn't know those 2 people were related, or I didn't know that guy was head of that before he wanted to do this, so I just feel all the time like I need to know more about history and how things work in the world. And so I think sometimes people think, man, that guy knows a lot of useless facts. But really, on the inside, I'm always learning, yearning to learn more about how the world works and how things are connected. So there's my mask.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. I really like the first of all, I love history. I'm a math guy, so I'm a math nerd. And I think one of the benefits for math and the reason I think I liked math because there was a right and a wrong, right? It was like, nope, that answer is not the right answer. That answer is the wrong answer. That is the right answer. You did the right answer, but you got it the wrong way, huh? And I liked arguing with teachers about, well, I did it my own way, but it's the same theory, right? Why couldn't I create my own theory of how to do this thing, right? It wasn't an accident how it got right. I just took a few extra different steps, right? But history, it was like, wait a minute. You're questioning my opinion on this, or are we questioning the facts? So okay, the date was the date, but can I have an opinion on how I got there? Oh, so I have to. So I think it was an opportunity for me to like have good healthy debate with educators around. Wait, so is it? I know that that's the date that happened, and I know that's the date that happened. But how they're connected, is it like, is there only one way that the world sees how it was connected, or do I get to see it how I see it connected? And it was a beautiful. I had some really good teachers who let me think out the box, right? Because the book says what the book says, and then if you question the book, then something's is really like, oh, something's wrong with you. You're being combative. I'm not I'm trying to be combative. I'm trying to say, can I have a feeling about how those things connect? And is it the book is 100% right on all of them, or? And I think it was beautiful because I go from my analytical class math where I'm a good student and I want to do good. So I'm not going to argue if a teacher don't let me argue. Like I argue when they give me permission to debate, right? Because I want to get the A. So if I can't argue and we can still get an A, then I'm gonna just do it with the way you want me to do it. But that's what I really loved having. I had some really amazing history teachers along the journey. So who like learning too, right? If I say something creative, they're like, huh, never thought of that, right? As opposed to a teacher's like, yeah, that's not what the book says. So I'm gonna just dismiss what you say, right? So thank you for being a learner too with the students.
Maybe that's another reason to not use the book.
And that's one of those things that may get you fired, right? That's maybe
It can. It can. It's got me in hot water a couple times, but I'm still here.
So mentioning that, the reason I mentioned it, folks, I'm not trying to suggest he's going to get fired. I'm naming his first book was 10 Lessons That Might Get You Fired. I missed a word in there. I hope I got it right, but that's how an amazing book, creative, like page turner. Like, what is he going to do next in this next class? So first of all, I know you said that was 8 years ago. Thank you for writing it because it was a beautiful book.
Well, thank you. It is called 10 Lessons That Will Get You Fired, but you must teach immediately. And the reason I wrote it was because I had a really amazing teacher in college. And she said that, when you go into teaching, everybody is going to have an interesting life. If you're going to be around 900, 1,000 kids every day, there will be lots of amazing things. Sometimes they're inspirational, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're sad. But she said, if you would just keep a little journal of all the meaningful things that happen, she said every teacher could write a book by the time they retire. And I took her at that. And I actually did. I began to take a few notes. And after about 15 years, I thought, I think there is enough here. And what's really weird is I would go to dinner parties with our friends. Maybe there'd be 8 couples. And there was a guy, and he was a public defender, and he had a lot of high profile cases around here, murder cases and things. You'd see him on TV. And I had another friend. He was a financial officer of a big healthcare place here in town. But everybody loved my stories. They would say, "What's going on at school?" And I would tell them, "Oh man, let me tell you what happened today." And it was like they liked those stories about what the kids were up to. And so I said, you know what? I can't go to everybody's dinner party, but I can maybe just write them down, and anybody that wants to hear them, they can come and listen to those in a different way. They can read the book. So she kind of encouraged me to do that. And then I guess people along the way, maybe they were just being nice to me, listen to my stories. But I felt that maybe the stories could help some people along the way in my journey as a teacher. So I hope it can help people.
Yeah, I've recommended this to several. So I know you said you have a new one. So what maybe as we're thinking about education today, 2025, school just started maybe a couple of weeks ago. Are you all one of the schools that started later in September or like early September or early August?
We start first week of August.
Okay. So you've been in school, so you're already hitting it. You're already hitting that the new
Well,
shoe smell is wearing off.
we're almost ready for fall break. Actually, fall break's next week. So we've been at it for almost about 8 weeks right now.
Okay, fantastic. And how are things this year? Just a big, litmus test of how is the year going compared to other years, or how are you doing in school? How are things with the students?
Things are great. I really teach at a great school. Doesn't mean we don't have problems, but I love where I teach. I like the kids that I get to work with. I'm teaching 3 different subjects. All of them are different. I get to work with a lot of freshmen in world history, and that's interesting if anybody's ever worked with a lot of 14-year-olds. But I also get some kids a little more mature in U.S. history. I kind of like that too. We can dig a little deeper and make some meaningful connections there. And then in my sociology class, and we can talk about that a little more, I've really dug in deep the last 8 years. It just keeps coming back up with using some real authentic projects in there. And I have become a project-based teacher. And it's interesting. My freshmen many times are not very familiar with it. They've never experienced that in other classes. So I kind of get them used to high school and used to the way I do things. And then I'm going to be introducing their project next week. That'll last us through the rest of the semester. U.S. history, we launched it about a month ago. So we're still in there. And then in my sociology class, we're doing some smaller projects, but it's going to lead up to what do you want to do to make a difference in the world. And that's a year-long class, so it's a little bit slower. But they're each one in a different spot. And sociology, I have no idea what they're going to choose or what we're going to do. And some teachers aren't very comfortable in there, but I've been doing it for a while. I know something great's going to happen. I'm just kind of actually excited about seeing exactly what the students end up doing. So my classes are in different places with their age and those type things, but also kind of where they are in their projects. And I'm just excited to be in the middle of it one more year.
When you say they is a year-long project, is it the project that happens during the class, or is it a project they do outside of class?
Now, so everything we do is in the class unless they voluntarily want to do more. If you read the book, you'll find out that I finally, it took me a while, I'm a little slow, to not give homework. A lot of studies, and people can look it up, show that homework is not effective or just marginally effective if you really try to do a good job with certain students.
Yeah.
But I have like I said, we got a lot of endemic poverty here in Appalachia, and you get a lot of students who are working. They're taking care of brothers and sisters. Heck, maybe they just want to spend some time with their loved ones when they get home from school. So I just kind of made it a personal mission. I'm not going to monopolize their private time. If you think about it, I get 90 minutes a day for 90 days straight. I told them I make a deal with them. If they'll work really hard, if they get here on time and we
Mm.
work hard until that bell rings, I'm not gonna monopolize your time. And if I can't get to it, that's probably more my fault than yours. I probably told too many stories that day. So that's kind of been my strategy. So sometimes kids get excited and they do things on their own, but this is all trying to deliver the instruction through the projects in the class.
Yeah. And for those who the book that you're talking about right now about not giving homework, is that in the first book or that's the
Yeah.
second book? First book.
Yes, that is in 10 lessons that'll get you fired. When you tell some people that there's not a lot of evidence that homework really helps most students, they're not very happy with you. They say, "Stop saying that. Stop saying." Well, I'm like, "But it's science. It's all the research." And they're like, "No, stop saying that. Stop saying that." So, some people get upset when you say that.
Yeah. Well, I know that, I in a season of my life of education, homework was used as almost like punishment, right? Like there's been teachers who are like, okay, you're gonna get a packet. And I'm like, well, if I gotta make a packet, then I gotta grade a packet. Well, why would I want to do that to myself, first of all? And second of all, like the ones who are not gonna do it anyway ain't gonna do it anyway. So the ones who are probably you're trying to like give a blanket punishment to everybody, the kids who really care are gonna do it, but they're gonna be stressed out trying to do it, and it wasn't even them who kind of maybe it caused the reason that you're frustrated about whatever, right? So I think I've seen it used in that way too, which is always not fun.
Yeah, I would even go a step further. Usually what it does is it only exacerbates, like, um, the cracks that are already there. Like, you have students and their parents are super supportive of education, they have a lot of structure in their home life, and they've got time, and their parents are gonna stay on them and make them do it.
Yeah.
They're gonna be successful probably no matter what. They have that structure, that support, that drive. The students that are struggling in school are the ones that if you give them the packet, the reason they're struggling in school is usually because there's also a lot of struggles at home. And really what you do is you just make it to where that kid is going to make lower and lower grades and be less and less successful because you pushed all this instruction into this chaotic thing that they can't control at home. So that's the way I see it. I think it actually makes some of those gaps bigger between our lower and higher performing students. It doesn't try to level the playing field. That's just okay. I have a lot of opinions, but that is my opinion on that.
No, thank you for that. Because we as an educator, maybe we can. Because I think maybe we hinted at a couple of things. I want to make sure people know what you are doing. So when you talk about the project, the sociology project, what do you want to do to make a difference in the world? Is that the project that your school became famous for?
It is 8 years ago. I found out. See, this is another one of those things like, how did I not know this, right? I'm a history guy. But in and around our state in the 80s, there was about 22 women who were murdered in a very similar way. And they had meetings, 5 different states came together, different police agencies, FBI, looked at it and said, we don't really know if there's a serial killer. Well, the bodies kind of stopped being found in 85 and they never met again. And I thought, nobody ever found out if there was a serial killer stalking women right here in our state? And so I showed the kids and they're like, "Oh, that's crazy." And I said, "Would you like to find out is there a person that's never been held accountable that was doing this?" And they were all in. So that was the project we did 8 years ago. I've done projects before and projects since, but that one got a lot of traction. True crime it's pretty big right now. People love true crime. But what I loved about it, look, I told the kids, I don't expect to have a serial killer in handcuffs by Christmas. Really, I said, we need to figure out what we think we can do. How am I going to hold you accountable? What's our learning going to be? What are our goals? And really, what the students focused on was that most of these women, the reason I've grown up here my whole life and had never heard about them, was that most of these women were living on like the margins of society. They were from very difficult homes. We didn't even know. So it's been amazing to see. And what the students said they wanted to do was remind people that these were real women and they deserve justice no matter who they are or how they grew up or who their parents were or how much money they had. So that's what they did. And that's really cool because now all of them have been identified. If you go online, you'll find all kinds of information about these women and podcasts, and there's getting ready to be, you know, other things developed about this. And really, they have made these women known, and they have reminded the world that, everybody has value. And that's really what my students learned from it. And I said, I have to give them more chances to do authentic learning so they can go beyond my standards and actually incorporate like the humanity into their learning. And so that's where I've been for years, but really the last 8 years, I've pushed really hard to try to figure out what I can do to do better with that.
Thank you for sharing that, and it's an amazing story, and I think for those who haven't seen it, I know there's some, YouTube channels that have told some of the story, and I know there's a lot of coverage on it. As an educator, for the ones who are around you and the teachers who maybe that teacher who told you that, you intimidate me, like, did you feel any of that as an educator, as a male educator? I mean, I don't know what the percentage of male to female educators are in Appalachia, but I know that nationwide it's heavily women, right? And definitely, did you feel like that you got any pressure, like, to tone it down? You're taking too much of the spotlight, like you're doing too many things. Did you feel pressure like that as an educator?
I'll say I never felt any pressure, but there's been comments. You can tell people feel certain ways. There's a lot of people feel that education belongs inside the walls of the school. I do not believe that. I believe that the walls should be to keep the air conditioning in or something. It shouldn't be to keep the kids and their learning in or even to keep the community out. I try very hard to bring people from the community in to work with my students. If you think about it, a lot of students who aren't successful don't have a successful network around them.
Yeah.
So how are they ever going to find adults who are successful if you separate them from every successful adult in society except for a small group of teachers? So I love for my students to be around already this year, we have heard from a retired FBI agent who taught them how to do victimology. And then we just heard from, literally one of the greatest living profilers who helped write the book on profiling for the FBI almost 30 years ago. He came in and met with us this week by Zoom and worked with the kids, and they get to see people. And by the way, he has an amazing story. He actually helped capture his own abuser when he was a child. When he grew up, he went back and put this guy in jail. And like, he's an amazing person with his resilience. And I want my students to be around as many successful people as they can. So if they don't see them anywhere else, they can see that, hey, there's different types of people doing different things, and I see them being successful, and they can be around them, and they can have some role models that say, hey, you can do this too. Even today in U.S. history, we're studying the 60s and 70s, been talking a lot about Vietnam, but we did bring up the protests and Woodstock. And I met a lady, she used to work here at school, and she was at Woodstock. So she Zoomed in with us. She's now retired and moved away, and she told the kids all about Woodstock. But the kids just, after we hung up the phone, she's a sweet lady. They were like, "Oh, we love her. She's amazing." They don't really say that about me ever. That's cool though. They loved her. They felt a connection with her. And
Yeah.
so I'm really big about I don't know much. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know anything about profiling or FBI or police work, or I don't really know much about history. I think I'm still relatively young. The students look at me like I'm a dinosaur. But I need to bring these experts in. They have so much knowledge, and my kids need a network around them of successful people that they can love and can be good examples to them. And so, that's part of it too. But yeah, I feel that sometimes people just act like I get these messages that say like 47 people have come through the office this year for you. You're causing a lot of work down here. And I'm like, yeah, but the kids need it, right? They need to meet these people. They need to learn from these people. And so sometimes I think that happens, that kind of thing. But And also, I feel this way that we all want affirmation. Young people want affirmation too. And if they can't get affirmation for doing the right thing, then you really can't blame them for trying to look for it by doing the wrong things. So
Mm,
anytime I catch a young person doing something right,
mm,
I try to bring as much attention to it as possible.
yeah.
That's me seeing somebody in the hall. I saw a kid cleaning up after somebody else in the lunchroom one day, and I called his mama and I said, I just want you to know somebody left a mess and your son walked by and cleaned it up. Nobody told him to, he didn't have to. And I said, I don't see that every day. And she said, I thought you were going to call and tell me something bad.
Mm,
Why is it, they only hear from us when the kids mess up? But the
yeah.
same way, like I live in a small town, they're always looking for news. If I find out a kid's done something cool, my class or not, I call them and I say,
Mm,
have you heard that there's kids out here doing this and this? Like, it's really amazing. I want them to get attention for it.
yeah.
I don't want to wait. I'll tell you this, if you bring a gun to school or something, you will get attention. It will be all over the news. But
Mm,
like, why can't we find kids that are doing good and bring
yeah.
some attention to them? And so people sometimes are like, you're always calling the paper and you're
Mm,
always doing this and doing that. And, but I'm like, if we don't do this, then we can't be mad at students who may seek attention in other ways. Like, we should be their biggest cheerleaders when they do things right. And so, anyway, I get some pushback on some of that. But anyway, that's just my philosophy.
yeah, I love that. And I know there's a quote that you may have heard. It says like, the kids who need the most love will probably ask for it in the most unloving ways, right? If we don't give it to them in the good ways, then they're gonna get it some way, you know. Um, and
Right.
and as a teacher, so you grew up there, and then you went back there. You went, or say you went to college somewhere, and you went back there, or
I've
did you
always been here. I went
just
to
stay?
college locally.
Okay,
So I stayed at home, drove about 20 minutes to school. So we had a local university. So I've always been here. My family's been here for like 11 generations, and I just haven't made it very far.
I know. When during the XQ conference, I think you had mentioned you built a. I don't want to say it wrong. You built something like a cabin. You built a cabin.
Yeah, me, that's just personally, I built a cabin just as like a
Oh, okay.
family project.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But again, I'm weird. Like, I mean, I built like an old fashioned, this probably means nothing to you, but an old fashioned dog trot dovetail cabin like they made in the 1700s. And nobody builds like that anymore for a reason. It's difficult, it's labor intensive, it's all those things. But hey, I'm a history guy. I just always wanted to live in a house like that. And it was so funny. I did almost everything with my family and friends. We did get a help with a couple of things. And one of them was the water. I didn't have the tools or a lot of that. So I called this local guy and said, can you come up and just look at it? And he pulls up. I'm up on upstairs working on this ladder. And my wife says, the guy's down here with the water. Come down and talk to him. And I came down and it was one of my former students. And he said, this all makes sense. I was thinking, what kind of crazy person would want to build a house like this? And he said, I saw you and I thought that guy, he just loves history and wants, but I considered it like a learning experience. My boys were teenagers. They still are teenagers. But, we just learned, we watched videos and had friends help us and read some books, and I mean, even me building this house was a learning experience, but we have
Yeah.
built things in school. One time I had my students build like a Hooverville shack from the Great
Okay.
Depression era inside the school. We built it out of people. We couldn't put any money into it, so we could only use, like, trash and scraps and stuff. And so we built a little house. It was pretty nice, had a bed in it. It was pretty cool, had a
Mhm.
door. And, then the students wrote up some things about the Depression and how people had to live, and we kinda put it all around, and then the students walked by it every day and was like, "What's that shack doing over there?" And then they would read, how many people had to live in those shacks and why did they have to live in those shacks? And so I thought that was an educational opportunity, so I've done a lot of weird things. That one didn't get me fired, but so it didn't make it into the book.
Hooverville shack. I ain't think now you got me curious. I'm gonna go look it up because I like learning too. I don't know what that is, but I will find out by the end of today.
Your mind's gonna be blown.
As an educator in your community, this work ever forward and the mask began with young men in my school because as a teacher, I taught here in locally in the Bay Area, and I saw really smart young men that were failing, and as a math teacher, because there's a lot of that rigidness around there's a right and a wrong answer, and the method you're using is getting you to the wrong answer. So I need to have you change your method, right? It's a lot more rigid, I think, sometimes than some of the flexibility of just feelings and thoughts, right? This is my mathematical opinion, but I may be wrong in just how I'm describing it. But have you seen anything just in terms of young men in your community? What have you been able to do to like support or help, help them figure out. We talk about the mask in our work because it's easy. I grew up in a community where you have to wear this mask. You have to be tough and strong, never have any issues, never have any problems, always have the most muscles and the most money and the most all the stuff, right? Whatever the world and your community tells you. Do you see anything in your community around just speaking of just young men in particular that causes them to like not open up or maybe you seem like a teacher who one could open up with, but I'm an adult talking to an adult. So how do you see young men in your community? Or are there room for them opening up to be more human? Or do they feel the pressure to lock in and not talk about how they feel for real?
I do think that they do a pretty decent job of that. I don't notice a big disparity there. The big issues I see in our community is that it seems like the girls wanna work hard and they wanna push and they wanna achieve, and it seems like we can't get the guys to take on any leadership roles. And, like, for example, we had a dual enrollment meeting, and for those that don't know, you teach college classes at the high school level,
Okay.
and it's usually open to juniors and seniors, and it's been a few years back, but I remember I was sitting in that room, and I counted, there was 77 students who wanted to take college level classes in high school. There
Mm,
was 5 guys. And so, look, I love the fact that ladies are working hard and taking charge, and man, I've got some of the best students. But I thought, why are the men not engaging? You know? And
mm,
so it's not that they're not smart or they can't be leaders or they can't be creative or they can't be hardworking. But I think a lot of it is they're just supposed to be kind of cool, like I can't
mm.
care about school too much. School's all right, but I'm really here for the football, or whatever. And so really to me, I wanna awaken something in them that wants them to be passionate about something in school, to take the lead in something, care about what's going on in here. If
Yeah.
you love something, you wanna be the leader, you wanna be doing something with it? And, like, yeah, I think for years, maybe for 50 years, the struggle was to maybe bring women into some of those roles, and realize what they can do. But now, I don't know if it's always been this way because remember, I'm relatively young.
Mm,
But, like, I just in my especially the last 10 or 15 years, I just see guys just stepping back from that leadership role and just saying, "I'm here to be cool and just get by."
yeah.
And I don't want that because I see that a lot of them have a lot of potential, and I want them to find a place to fit in and really do some good work and maybe try to awaken something in them.
Yeah. Thank you for naming that. And I think that what I talked to a professor the other day at a university in Illinois, and he told me that at his school, the population they have the 28% young men, 28% in their college is a university that has 18,000 students, and I'm like, did you say 28%? And you're like, and I know the numbers are everywhere different, but some have a different rate. But we know that am on this mission of trying to support young men to find that fire. Like, what would make you come alive? Like, what are the rules you're following under? What are the rules of being a what you call it? What a man is to you, and what's holding you back from being your best self? Because I see you're smarter than what I'm seeing. I'm only writing in the box what you give me. You know what I'm saying? I'm sadly having to write a lot of zeros in here. I don't wanna write zeros in here. I like you. I think you're brilliant. I can't put anything in here if you don't give me anything, you know? And I think it's like, how do you help them you're teaching freshmen, so I started with freshmen when I was a high school teacher. That's how Ever Forward started. Your 18-year-old self is gonna be really mad at you because he's not gonna graduate, you know? And you're gonna be looking for some teacher to blame, and I'm telling you now, so it's on the record, you don't get to blame any teachers. Because no one's doing this to you. You're not doing is causing this. And I felt like I was trying to have those conversations with students, it's hard in class because they don't want to be pointed out. They don't want to be pulled outside to have a talk with the teacher. And so that's why I started the Ever Forward Club, is because I said, well, let's just come together at lunchtime. Let's talk about it. And so, yeah, I think that what you're describing is something that I hear educators describing all over the country. What would you want to say to educators out there? I really love that you're doing project-based learning, and I really love that you're thinking outside the box of education and teaching. What is something you want to say to educators out there who are feeling tough? They feel paralyzed trying to do project-based learning. What message do you have to students out there who want to do more project-based learning, but their teachers are not doing it? So you have words of encouragement to them, to something to say to their teacher to ignite maybe some of that. It's probably two different questions, but it's two thoughts around the same project-based experiences.
Okay. Um, well, number one, let's start with the teachers. We did a lot of polling of our teachers and stuff here. And I would say most people in general can understand this. We just don't want kids who know things. We want kids who can do things. And like I hear people say stuff like this. Maybe you've heard it. We have kids that can graduate high school and they can pass algebra 1 and algebra 2 and geometry, and they get out here in the work world. Maybe it's some like entry level job, like maybe working fast food. And then they come in and they're like, well, this person couldn't even count my change back. And I think what they're saying is they couldn't do something with the math they learned, right? Somehow they passed it. They must have learned something for the test. And so I hear teachers complain. I know they think this is an issue, right? That we need people who can do things, not just know things. And then my thing is, well, how are they ever going to learn how to do something with their learning if we don't let them do that as part of school? So I think most people do want students who can do things. I think what holds most teachers back is fear of failure. I share this with a lot of people. I never really did projects growing up. I mean, we got to do like a volcano in 4th grade, but you went home and made it. It wasn't like part of your learning. It didn't deliver the instruction to you in class. So there wasn't much of that at all. When I went to college, I don't remember them really talking that much about project-based learning. And when I started as a teacher, I didn't do any projects. And so I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't taught that way. I didn't start that way, but I wanted to be that way after a few years. And I just had to do my own thing and figure out how to do it. And the weird part is, like, I thought I had invented like the most amazing thing in the world. Like, I've discovered that projects are good. And then you realize there's organizations out here like pushing for this for decades. And then you find out there's resources out there. They can help me. I mean, I went to different conferences and they really helped me. I got resources. They helped me. I went to visited schools and they helped me. I got a couple of mentors who had done projects. And I still to this day, I talk to them every month or two about my work, and they give me things to make me a better teacher. So like, I think people say, well, I mean, I'm doing pretty good with lecturing and worksheets. My students are, they're making decent grades, or they're passing the tests, or I'm covering my content, or I'm getting evaluated as a teacher and they're looking pretty good. And, what if I do change to this thing I don't really know a lot about? And what if I don't do it as well?
Mm.
And I think that's the fear. But I've just kind of been, somebody told me one time that there's people that are like risk averse. And they said, I'm not that. So for whatever reason, I was just like, I just want to try it. I want to try something. And I'm not going to say that every one of them turned out awesome the first time I did it, but I enjoyed doing it. And the kids seemed like they enjoyed doing it. And so I just continued to try. And so for me, it was like, I don't want to be good at doing what doesn't help kids.
Mm.
I would rather be bad at doing what does help kids. That's
Mm.
kind of the way I see it. So getting kids engaged, I think everybody would say is good.
Yeah.
It's probably one of our biggest problems in school. People talk about the kids don't want to go to school, chronic absenteeism. Well, why don't they want to come to school? Because evidently there's nothing here that's better than what they're watching on Netflix or whatever they're doing with their time.
Yeah.
So why don't we give them some amazing experience they can't find anywhere else? I quit on my syllabus. I stopped writing a Mr. Campbell's U.S. history class. Now it says Mr. Campbell's U.S. history experience.
Mm.
And like today, somebody's going to say, "What did we do? I wasn't here." And I'm going to say, "I had the lady from Woodstock come. Like,
Mm.
where were you at?" And they're going to be like, "Oh, I couldn't be here." And I said, "I can't get the lady from Woodstock back. You just missed it, you know?"
Yeah.
I had a girl we brought in, the greatest living profiler, in my personal opinion. He's amazing. I mean, books and movies and all this stuff he's done. It's crazy. And I had a girl tell me the next day. She said, "Mr. Campbell, I didn't want to miss anything this guy said." She said, "My hand was on fire yesterday. It was burning." And she said, "But I didn't want to miss anything he was saying because I thought, where else can I get trained by like one of the greatest profilers in America?" And so
Mm.
you gotta, and the same thing, we bring a lot of people in. We heard from one of the victims where we're looking at one of the murder victims, and we brought her brother in, and he zoomed in with us from California, and they were learning about victimology, how to look at victims as people and learn from them. And when he got done telling the kids about the life they grew up in, there was two girls said, "I almost started crying. Like, I
Mm.
can't believe I didn't understand why that girl would want to leave home. And now that I understand their home, I would have probably left too, you know? I didn't understand why that person would turn to drugs. Didn't they know that was bad for them?"
Yeah.
And she said, "But after I heard their life, I understand." So I
Mm.
kinda rambling, but my point is when I do the project, I don't claim to be an expert.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I admit that was also one of my other things, admit you don't know anything. Why did I bring the victim's brother in? Because I don't know about that life, but he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And, why do I bring the FBI because I don't know how to profile an offender or a victim, but they
Yeah.
do. And whatever it is, hey, I don't know about Vietnam. I was never there, but I can bring you a Vietnam veteran and he'll tell you what it was like to be there.
Mm.
So I'm okay with not being the expert.
Yeah.
I wasn't real smart growing up. I don't claim to be too much smarter now,
Mm.
and I'm okay with that. I think that education, if you think about it, the way it's traditionally been is teachers are supposed to be like the expert on their subject.
Mm.
And it's hard for some teachers to say, I'm really not the expert. Since the internet, I mean, the internet knows more about name the subject than I do. And AI can tell you something about it faster than I can.
Mm.
So we just have to be willing to transition from I know everything when I'm the expert, just listen to me,
Yeah.
to I mean, I can help you. I hope I know something and can explain something in a way that the chatbot can't.
Yeah.
But like maybe I don't have to be the holder of all knowledge.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the creator of learning experiences. So I'm going to set these things up. I will do this. I'll have a guest speaker do that. You can work on this.
Mm.
And then we'll set up the experience and let you learn, not just know something, but also do something. And the big thing is, teachers feel like they have to do it all on their own,
Yeah.
but I don't. I've got like 20 co-teachers, and most of the time don't tell anybody. But a lot of time I just sit in the back of the room and like goof off. I'm reading the newspaper because I mean the FBI guy, he's telling it, and the kids love him. They think he's the greatest thing ever. And the lady who was at Woodstock, she's telling some crazy stories up there about Woodstock. I'm like, keep it PG-13. But they love it, and I'm just sitting over here, and I just created the experience,
Yeah.
and they're applying their learning and getting to know people and helping people, and that's the other big thing is I always want something they do to feel like they saw it help somebody. I
Mm.
think the biggest reason that people don't help people is because they don't get to see the help.
Yeah.
Once you see the need and you see how you're helping, man, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of different things. We helped get that lady out of prison 7 years ago, and once she got released, she came from California to Elizabethton to say thank you to the students. And I just
Wow.
got to sit in a restaurant around a table with my students and say there was a woman who was going to die. She was serving 25 to life for murder. She was in her 70s. She thought she was going to die in prison. And now she's sitting in front of you in
Mm.
Tennessee, sharing her life and a cup of coffee with you or whatever. Like, look what you changed. You changed her entire life, you know? And once kids get a taste of that, so this leads into my next part. I'm addicted. I am hopelessly addicted to project-based learning. I'm
Mm,
addicted to giving my kids real meaningful experiences, and I love it so much that I don't wanna get off of it, you know? If
yeah,
I had to go back to textbooks and worksheets, I'd probably quit and do something else. I just couldn't stand it.
yeah,
Once I got the taste, like, I just wanna and every year the experience is different. New group of kids, slightly different project, and the things are different. And what I hope I'm creating because, students don't really get to control much in most classrooms.
yeah.
So they can't stand up and say, "Teacher, like, I'm bored." Well, you can say it, but teachers get offended, you know? So what I hope I'm creating is students who are also addicted to real, authentic, project-based learning where they get to see that what they're learning is making a difference in the world. And that whenever they get into a class where they say, "Well, let's just talk about what somebody learned 100 years ago," then they can say, "You know what? I've already done this and this and this, and I would really love to have the chance to take what you're teaching me and use it to help somebody." I mean, think about this. I was on a panel with a student at an educational conference here last year, and the student went into college and was taking psychology and sociology and some criminal stuff.
Mhm.
And the teacher's like, "All right, we're gonna memorize some words here out of the textbook." He said, "I just stood up and said, I already found a serial killer when I was 15 years old. Like, can we like do a little more?" And I was like, "How'd that go over?" And he's like, "Well, not so good." But what I hope it gives them is like a low tolerance, right? Just like because I mean, I think as a teacher, if a kid came to you and said, "I want more," first of all, after I passed out, I would get up and I would say, "Okay, like this is what I've been wanting for all these years."
Yes.
I think teachers, if you say, "Look, I wanna do more than just memorize. I wanna help somebody. Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we apply? I
Mhm.
promise I'll work hard. I promise I'll still learn what I'm supposed to learn."
Yeah.
But I think this is what okay, I'm gonna try to summarize this right here. I think what teachers think is, "Wow, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't really know how to do this. I wasn't
Yeah.
trained how to do it. Like, what if I don't do a good job? How do I call around and find all these people to help?"
Mm.
But the thing is, I'm kind of a selfish, greedy person. I think I get more out of the projects than the kids do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I got to sit at that table with a woman who thought she was gonna die in prison, and I wasn't a student. I didn't do all the work, but I just
Yeah.
got to tag along and see it, and it was awesome. It was life-changing. And I've got to talk to Vic I mean, I got to meet that victim's brother. He came in from California last year, and,
Nice.
whenever he looked at the students and said, "For 35 years, I didn't know what happened to my sister."
Mm.
The police called me and told me, he said, "That was a big day in my life. At least I know she was dead, but at least I knew what had happened to her."
Yeah.
And I had some, clarity on that. And he said, "Now I'm going back to California and I think I know who killed her." And he said, "You will never know what that does for me." And the kids, like, they're never gonna be the same. I
Yeah.
can never hand that kid a worksheet and say, "Here, change the world with your worksheet." They're not gonna tolerate it. I hope we're building kids with a low tolerance for
Mm.
I don't wanna be mean. I hope hope we're
Mm.
building students with a low tolerance for education that is not authentic and meaningful. How about that? I'll say it that way.
That's well said as a teacher. Well said. Thank you. That's so beautiful, and I thank you for the message for the educators who want to do more of this kind of work, for students who want more of that kind of learning, to advocate for yourself. You may not want to stand up in the middle of your college class and say it out loud. Maybe you can go to office hours, but all the ways that you could advocate for yourself as a student to say, "I want more." Go to your teachers, do that, and the
I had
educators.
Yeah, I
Oh,
had I had 2 girls. "Can
yeah.
we come talk to you after class?" This year, just a week or 2 ago. "Can we come talk to you after class?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We're looking at these victims, but we noticed a pattern over here with these 2 women. One's in Texas and one was here in Tennessee." And they said, "Would it be okay if we research this on our own?" I
Mm,
said, "Yes." Yeah, you're
yeah,
asking me if it's okay that you care about something enough to do it when nobody's making you. Thank you. That's like the yes, of course you can do that. Why do you
yes.
even ask me? And number 2, like, I didn't really do it. I just showed them these things and they saw the connection and they're passionate about it. One of the girls was a 14-year-old girl that was murdered. And that's my age,
Mhm.
Mr. Campbell, and her family doesn't know what happened to her. Can we just look into it? And so they did. Now they're really passionate about trying to find a way to help that girl. So I think that most teachers should be honored when somebody says something happened in class that got my attention that makes me want to do more, and you'd be willing. But the one thing I want to say to the teachers is just trust your students.
Yeah.
Trust that they can do good work. Well, my kids are a bunch of goofballs. Well, okay, I've got some goofballs too. Okay.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, yeah.
freshmen. They don't know what they want to do.
That's right.
They're not
That's right.
mature. They
Mhm.
waste resources. They color on themselves when you give them a marker. I get it. But and I understand. I make them earn it. I just don't say, I'm going to give you something really important to do. You got to show me that you can do the work.
That's right.
But be willing to trust them
Yeah.
that they can actually do meaningful work. Well, my kids don't do meaningful work. Maybe that's because you didn't give them any meaningful work to
Mm.
do. So when I give them something, I mean, why should I do this? Is going to make some English teacher mad, but why should I do a research paper on Beowulf when everybody's been doing a research paper on Beowulf for the last 1,000 years? Like, what am I going to come up with that the smartest guy in the world didn't come up with doing this 100 years ago? But what if I gave you something new? What if you got to do something nobody else did, and I trusted that you could actually do some good work? And I'm
Mm.
really bad about that. The kids hate me for it. I just
Mm.
say things like, I called the FBI profiler and I told him you'd have a profile of the killer in a month. And they're like, we don't know how to profile. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess we need to get to that. But I've already called him and you better have something to say in a month. And I think you can do a good job. Let me get you the resources you need to do it. And
Yeah.
I always have the adults saying, man, like for high school kids, like that's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, I couldn't do that when a lot of times when they present, I always invite an audience and they always say, man, I couldn't talk to people like that when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And so, just be willing to take a chance on kids.
That's it. I think you and I could have multiple conversations, and maybe this is just a part one of many. But I'm first of all, I want to hear what project they come up with in the next couple of weeks after your
Mm.
break. I would love to ask you. You said you had a second book. I would love you to tell us the name of the second book so we can share it in the notes. And then, what are you working on right now that you want people to, or where can they follow you, or where can they follow the journey? If there's anywhere that you share the journey out in the world, what ways would the audience be helpful to with the work you're doing ahead?
Okay, just quickly. So the second book I've written is not out yet. I don't even have a publisher for it yet. I do have the manuscript,
Okay, okay.
but it is about using true crime in the classroom.
Nice.
And it can be all ages, all subjects. By the way, I don't teach criminal justice or any of those things. You can teach science, math, English, whatever. You can teach it to fifth graders, like fifth graders with murder. Well, you don't do murder. There's ways you can do age appropriate and get students involved in learning important things. So I have a book coming out there. It's about 20. It's going to be about 20 chapters, and the first chapter is a story about something that happened in my class that kind of shows you what something that happened. And then I hopefully mostly I don't know. I think it's mostly for teachers, but I had a couple people read it that aren't teachers and they said they would read it. I don't know. I think it's kindly focused on teachers. But then they say, well, how do I create that in my class? I don't know how to do that. And I just try to walk you through some things I've learned that you can try. But it is kind of specific maybe for teachers, but hopefully that'll be out maybe in the next year or so. And then I'm not very good. A lot of people, social media and stuff, I'm not really good at it. I would encourage people to listen to the podcast Murder 101. And that was a year long journey with some students about the project where we did look into these unsolved murders. The reason I like it is because KT Studios is the studio that produced it that I worked with. And they had a passion that it wasn't just going to be about a crime. I mean, there's plenty of, if you want murders, and like everybody's got a podcast about a crime. But this one's a little different because we spent about the first 3 episodes talking about what's going on in the classroom. How do you set it up? How do you get the kids interested? What does it look like in the classroom? How do you work in the standards? How do you make sure they're learning what they're supposed to be learning and then applying it? And how do you get help from people outside? And so I think people who are educators would like kind of enjoy that look. And I've heard that even a lot of people aren't educators are just really interested to see like, oh, that's what it looks like in the classroom. So anyway, Murder 101, I think is a good source.
Great.
Soon, I would maybe at a slightly later date be able to come back and tell you that there might be a visual resource that people could go and learn more about the work the students are doing in project-based learning.
Okay.
But that will be out before too long, and I think everybody
Okay.
will have access to that. And so those are some things that are coming up. But really, I do travel, I do conferences. I hope that my book can be of help to people when the new one comes out. I hope it can be of help to people. And really, it's just been an amazing journey for me. And I had, it's kind of interesting you brought it up. I had a young lady email me this morning. It was waiting on me when I got here from Washington State. That's the other side of the country. And she said, Mr. Campbell, I saw an article about what your students get to do. And I want to
Mm,
start a before school club at my school where we can get a chance to do it. Maybe not as part of a class, but just a club for no credit.
yeah.
And I said, hey, young lady, I will do anything I can to help you. But hey, I mean, I try to help anybody I can. I love working with teachers. My wife says, as this beard gets a little grayer, she says, I see you transition to where you love working with adults too. And anything I can do to help adults, I'll be one. I do keep a Facebook page, 10 lessons that'll get you fired. I do keep that. People can message
Yeah,
me there, but
there
I'm
it
not
is.
super active
Okay.
on a lot of social media. But if anybody ever gets a hold of me, I'll be willing to help you any way I can. I always find out that I learn a lot when I try to help others too. And so I need to learn. I'm always looking for ways to learn and get better.
Well, Mr. Campbell, thank you. Mr. Campbell says, I want to read this statement you said, creator of learning experiences. I appreciate you. I really enjoyed this conversation. We went over our time. I apologize for keeping you late, but let me let you know that I'm grateful to you for the work you're doing as an educator and to help young people connect to their learning in deeper ways. So thank you for the experiences. And hopefully this won't be bye, but it'll be see you soon. See you when you're ready to make the announcement about the next thing that may be possible coming soon. Let's have you back so you can tell us about it, and that's how we'll do it.
I would absolutely love to come back. I appreciate you. The one thing I appreciate about you so much, you always got that smile on your face. You're always positive. And you challenge me. I remember riding on the bus with you, gave me that card, and you're like, all right, I need an answer. And I'm like, oh, I got to think hard on the bus. But you're always challenging people, pushing people. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, folks, Mr. Campbell and I, we share our masks here. Alex, we can call him Alex now. I'm an adult, yeah. Alex and I share our masks here publicly, but you don't have to share yours publicly. You can share yours anonymously at millionmask.org. We'll see you soon. Take care. And thank you, Mr. Alex, for being here. It's good to see you.